when he came on while the team was warming up, realized that the electricity there was magic, that something special was happening, that the players were being affected by it. So walked back into the changing room and had a blackboard, and he put 33 and stood by the blackboard, and everybody passed by, getting ready for the game, and silence was made. He says, "Do you know what this is?" Jose says, "This is the point difference with Liverpool in the league. So you should not be scared."
Guillem Balague, the author of A Season on the Brink, a portrait of Rafa Benitez's Liverpool. Delighted to have you here today. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us about, predominantly, we'll be speaking about the memories of that incredible night, the miracle of Istanbul 20 years ago. But really, the story of Istanbul starts, well, over a year prior to that night in May 2005. Could you just take us back to the beginning of how Liverpool appointed Rafa?
You could even go another year back, Matt, because there was a meeting between Liverpool and Valencia in which Valencia destroyed Liverpool. Yeah. And even perhaps it wasn't reflected in the results so much. Certainly the players felt they had been killed by an unknown force dressed in white. And I know both Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher were talking to Rick Parry, the CEO at the time, saying, "Who's this guy?" And they started following him closely. And there were other candidates, but eventually Rafa Benitez had a CV that nobody else had. At a time where I was already doing Spanish football in Sky Sports, but to be honest, not many people were watching. So whatever was happening in Spain didn't have a huge relevance. But of course, he'd won the league twice, a league that generally is taken by one of the big teams, be it Real Madrid, Barcelona, or Atletico Madrid. Had won the UEFA Cup as well. And he'd done it not with the biggest stars, perhaps, without goal scorers, for instance. Football at the time was very clearly the football of Alex Ferguson of Manchester United. Let's be tight at the back and let's counter-attack, or let's give freedom to the rest of the team to attack. And there was organization in the way that Rafa Benitez approached the game, and that helped him make the individuals better. I think there was one of the years that he won the league at Valencia. Rubén Baraja was the best goal scorer of the season for Valencia with 6 goals. So it was about defensive organization, certainly, that had to do more than just defending in the box, which was if you like, the style of the time. So he was taking football, in a way, he was taking football to another dimension. And when he went to Liverpool, quite clearly, he wanted to impose that. And he did it with a very, very small coaching staff. It was Paco Ayestaran, Paco Herrera, it was Ocho Torena, the goalkeeper coach, and Rafa. That was it. But he had a very clear idea of what he wanted to do. And because he was new, he was done with a team that was very accepting of whatever was new, having had Gerard Houllier before Rafa. All that was the perfect storm for what happened. There were, of course, moments of, as we'll all remember, moments of luck, moments of inspiration. But generally, it was a lot of work that was put in there. New work that at the time nobody else was doing, and that allowed Liverpool, without the finances of others, of compete really, really well.
Yeah, and obviously you spoke there about Steven Gerrard, Jamie Carragher. Those were the players that a new manager really needs to win over. And like you say, they'd almost been won over by that night. And I remember the Kop clapped Valencia off the pitch that night. I think Pablo Aimar was probably man of the match, as he was in most games around that sort of time. So it was exciting times. And, you had quite an insight into Rafa, it's fair to say, and you were quite close with Paco Ayestaran, his assistant. Is that right?
Basically, I was close to everyone because I was like them, an immigrant who had 10 years in Liverpool, even though at the time I was between Liverpool and London. So I was at the training ground, Melwood, when they first arrived. I was inside the facilities when they arrived, literally, because I had been told that they were coming, and I just, by pure accident, I was just having a coffee with somebody in Melbourne. Oh, hello, and introduced myself. I knew Rafa anyway before that through his time of Valencia interviews we'd done with Sky. So I think they saw me, Rafa in particular, as somebody that any doubts about the culture or the reaction to words or trying to understand, relationship to media, to players, to referees, all that. I was a kind of source of information, if you like, at the beginning, and for me, it was I was there available if they were happy to share, which they were at certain points, because for them was a completely new experience, and they knew that through my work in Spanish media and the UK media, whatever they were doing could be properly explained, because I understood what was happening. Plus, a lot was explained to me, so it was a great experience professionally as well. Is my career made a massive jump at that point, even though I had already worked for Sky Sports and etc. But plus, I was offered at the beginning of that season to write a book, but we didn't know what to write about, and all that was happening. But I think getting so close to decision making in a football club like Liverpool was certainly an eye opener. And that first day that I was in Melbourne, I think it was Paco Herrera who said, "What would you go for dinner?" I said, "Oh, I'll take you somewhere. I know a good restaurant in Chinatown, which is a typical restaurant you go at 2 o'clock in the morning after you've been having a few beers on a Friday night." And Paco Herrera, Paco Ayestaran, and Nacho Torrena, they all joined me in. Rafa doesn't socialize that much. And at the end of that meal, we had a great conversation, had a laugh. Here, I heard a lot about them and what they did and what they wanted to do. I was told, we will never ask you again for a recommendation for a restaurant, which reminded me that football people are a completely different level to me in so many ways, but certainly in the quality of the cuisine. Not so much now. I could take them to places now.
It's improving as well in Liverpool. We've got more Spanish
Oh,
foods
yeah.
now. Absolutely. Um, so obviously you've got this book running in the background and taking your season
Facebook.
through that book. There it is. As the season develops and you start getting these fairy tale, just single games, really. I mean, the quarterfinal and the semi-final, more and more it's building towards a feeling that this is Liverpool's destiny. This is, the fate that they're going to win this with what I think most people, even Rafa himself, would probably admit was not the greatest team to ever win the European Cup.
Yeah, but first of all, the decision to write the book happened at 7 o'clock in the morning after the final. So I wasn't following the season of Liverpool just to write a book. I was following it because I was allowed to understand what was going on. I was reporting it back in Spain, of course. You know, Sky took advantage of it as well because there was a lot of stories that I could share with them. That was it. That was, but yeah, certainly. Every round was like, I think I'm going to go to this game because Bayer Leverkusen is beatable. Juventus, oh my God, whatever happens, it'll be great. Before that, Olympiacos, you have to be there in case there's a turnaround. So I ended up being in most games at Liverpool and away, and yeah, it was. You look back in hindsight and it sounds like a fairy tale, but because the difficulties they were facing to actually get the team to play in the way that Rafa wanted, the difficulties to finish top four in the Premier League were a daily occurrence. There was no much money to play with, so there were risky decisions that were taken with players that hadn't even played in the first division in Spain. So all in all, it was a tough year. That now we can tell the story of clearly, but it just didn't look, say, in April or March, that was heading towards a Champions League final. But what became clear from the beginning is that, especially in Europe, especially in Anfield. Nights with the noise that took place against, I don't know, Juventus, for instance, choose your game really. The noise just allowed Chelsea, allowed the team to reach another level. And when they reached that level, it was very difficult to beat them because uh, despite the fact that there was a lot of emotion floating around, the team was organized and they, in a way, had nothing to lose. And because there didn't have to be waves of attack, of creativity, because there wasn't so much, they knew that as long as they were working for each other and there was organization, things could happen. And obviously, yeah, things did happen.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Chelsea game, and still to this day, even with the nights that we've had under Jurgen, most people that were there that night will still insist that that was the greatest Anfield atmosphere, and it will never be beaten. Um, could you take us back to that? Were you at the semi-final? Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah, both games. And the Barcelona semi-finals were good as well because it was unexpected, that turnaround. But I must tell you, there was a hunger for winning something big, a hunger to beat Chelsea, the money club,
Mm.
a hunger to to leave Jose Mourinho behind, who had been the arch enemy of Rafa Benitez, even though they started the season very friendly, and at some point Jose Mourinho approached Rafa with the idea of buying Steven Gerrard. Would you let me? Would that be okay? That was the kind of conversations they used to have, and then Rafa started, doing things that Jose Mourinho weren't very happy, like knocking them out of the Champions League, for instance. But there was that sense that something special could happen here, and I was at Anfield an hour before the game, and it was rocking, and it never stopped rocking. It was just really one of those days that you think the floor moved. Maybe it didn't. It just That's how I remember it. That the stadium was in a. It was just one voice. It was a one group of people that were determined to help whatever happened on the pitch. So I wasn't so much as a journalist that day, even though of course you never switch that off. But I was a fan and I loved it. And then you start hearing stories from the inside for the book, and then later on as well, like how Jose Mourinho, when he came on while the team was warming up, um, realized that the electricity there was magic, that something special was happening, that the players were being affected by it. So walked back into the changing room and had the blackboard, and he put 33 and stood by the blackboard, and everybody passed by, getting ready for the game, and silence was made. He says, "Do you know what this is?" Jose says, "This is the point difference with Liverpool in the league. So you should not be scared. You should not be scared." The goal that never was, or was it? But if he hadn't been, it would have been a sending off for Peter Cech. So yeah, it was the Liverpool of Rafa Benitez at his best, because they competed every single minute against a side that individually were superior.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the players that contributed in significant ways. You forget the likes of Igor Biscan pulling out an absolute world-class midfield performance without Stevie there, and Scott Carson playing in goal. And he's probably played in more Champions League games for Liverpool than he has Man City, and he's been at Man City for how many years? Um, Obviously, that night happens against Chelsea, like you say. Any Liverpool fan, if the ball hadn't gone over the line, we would have gladly taken a penalty for Stevie G at the time, who was scoring penalties for fun, and Chelsea being down to 10 men for pretty much the whole game. So, Mourinho's the whole being hung up on that, not quite sure that we can buy into that one. But of course, it's all irrelevant. We make it to Istanbul. Um, I mean, first of all, Istanbul itself, the location for a final was otherworldly, almost like it was a lunar moonscaper outside. Um, what are your recollections arriving that night and thinking that this is an AC Milan team that are full of some of the best players in the world at the time. You know, absolute legends of the game.
Yeah, I was a slave of logic at that time, and I think that that year logic disappeared from my thinking, especially in certain parts of a season or in a cup final, because yeah, AC Milan were superior. Again, the individuals were much better than the ones that Liverpool could offer. You could say, it was great to get to here, but the feeling I got, and I get, I guess by talking to players and to the coaching staff, it also got transmitted to them, is that the fans wanted to win it quite clearly. They weren't there just for a party, even though the party was great. Taksim Square was conquered quite clearly, and but with a really good atmosphere. I remember that. Um, that was perhaps one of my early experiences of an English side in a final, and living it very very closely, and realizing that it's very easy to portray uh, English arriving to another city badly. It's very very easy. Because nobody remembers to take the litter with them, because obviously by 3 o'clock in the morning everybody is drunk too much and all that. But I think often it gets forgotten what that sense of community does to people, sense of adventure, togetherness, of the noise, the color, and as long as there is respect to the other and there is no violence, it's a really good evening, and I enjoyed a lot of that. Um, there was obviously the promises of, if whatever happened, I was going to sit down with the Xabi Alonso family because I'm very close to them, and his agent. I was going to meet Jamie Carragher, and Steven Gerrard was going to say hello, and there was all that after, because in my eyes anyway, I felt part of the whole journey, having been close to the Spanish guys that had just arrived. I had my journalistic side satisfied, because I knew I was going to get a little bit of an inside story of what the game and the day would be on the final. I enjoyed as a fan as well. Crossed paths with a lot of colleagues like Tony Barrett. Not maybe Tony was another time, but certainly Chris Bascom was there, and we all felt like, whatever happens, what a year this has been. And then, of course, yeah, the game just blew our minds. So many little details of it that I remember. But now that I mentioned Chris Bascom, I'll say that at halftime we met, and we're shaking our heads, and there was no words coming out, because it was obviously very disappointing. But certainly we couldn't see how Liverpool could turn that around. But also looked at him when Liverpool did turn it around, and his face of happiness, and how not just him, everybody in the press area were celebrating what we knew straight away was a historic moment. And my head went straight into, after calming down, and eventually Liverpool winning, went to we need to explain this somehow. We certainly need to make something out of this, because I am in a privileged position, and it has been an amazing final and year, but it wasn't in my hands. So after the game, I went out, and had some. It was a couple of things, strange things happened after the final. One, Paco Yestalan precisely was telling me, I'm empty. I don't feel anything. It's like, I know it's important. I know everybody's happy. I can see that. I've got nothing in me. And it was the first time, but not the last time I heard this, the emptiness of sports triumph. Obviously, you work all your life even to reach something like that. But once you're there, make sure that there is something else apart from winning, because otherwise that emptiness goes on for a while. But it's also the tiredness, the fact that what had happened was so big that the mind wasn't able to understand it fully. There was all that. So that was a first reaction that surprised me. Then ended up in a circle in the hotel with Xabi Alonso and his family, and he was also calm. I mean, the contrast between what was happening in the stadium and on the way to the hotel and inside the hotel was so dramatic. That also was a first for me. Just people talking normally about a game that had happened. And it was like, no, but this is history. What are you talking about? You should all be like going mental like Jamie Carragher was going. Jamie Carragher and all his cousins. That was the code for entering that hotel. If you said, I'm a Jamie Carragher cousin, you were allowed in. And sometimes Jamie had to come in. Yeah, he's my cousin. Bring him in. So there was that. And Steven Gerrard taking the cup with him to his bedroom. Actually, Rafa Benitez, I just remembered Rafa Benitez taking a colleague of mine who's a close friend of his, journalist as well from Valencia, Edu, and me to his bedroom. In the middle of all the chaos, when everybody was coming in and out, we went to his bedroom because he wanted to explain how the whole thing had gone. What a privileged moment. And then ended up going to bed, I don't know, because it was 2 hours more than in England, I think, or 3 hours. Ended up going to bed like 4 o'clock in the morning. And 7 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from my literary agent, David Luxton, saying, that book, we were talking about, I think you're going to do a book on Liverpool this season in Istanbul. So I started that same day. Well, I had started before, and I had 2 months to do it. Everybody went on holidays. Luckily, I got everybody's number and rang from, Ancelotti to Gattuso to Mejuto Gonzalez, the referee, to everybody at Liverpool that I needed. And in 2 months, the whole book was written.
It's an incredible story, and it's great that it is documented in the manner of the depth that you've got it there in that book. Were you fortunate enough to be able to make it back for the parade, or was that not?
No. I think my brother did, who lived in London, and he managed to get to Liverpool. I'd lived in Liverpool for 10 years. My brother also had some time in Liverpool. So he did go and tell me the whole story, but I was on cheap flights. So I was going back whenever it was possible to go back. And no, I think I made it 2 days later or something like that. So I missed the parade, obviously, followed the whole thing, and then was told stories about it. But yeah, I was in Istanbul, but missed that bit.
One of the things that your book really details, and it's this, there's so many different stories around what happened at halftime. What has Rafa told you about how it all played out? Because obviously we have the story about Steve Finnan's unhappy, Didier Man's not sure what's going on. There's 12 markers on the board at one stage, and there's Traore playing on. It sounds a little bit chaotic depending on who tells the story.
It was 7 minutes, and the story is told in the book, not just from Rafa, but from everybody else. And then it's been interesting how some have taken those stories and have repeated them, which I'm happy with. But how also myth has transformed the moment into something else, into something mythical. And that was not true. But this is football, right? So just take whatever truth you want. But I'll tell you the truth that's based on conversations, the journalistic truth, if you like. So from the moment that they went 3-0 down, Paco Ayestarán and Rafa Benitez started walking into the tunnel. And Rafa and Paco had a clear idea that Didi had to come in because there was a big gap in the middle. So Didi Hamann stayed away from the changing room and warmed up for the 50 minutes of halftime. And then Rafa thought, another thing I have to say is I have to just bring back the fans into the changing rooms and remind everyone that they've all made really big efforts to be there and that the team needed to show pride and to try to give something back to the fans. Then myth says that people started singing You Never Walk Alone, and that went through the long tunnel of the Ataturk Stadium and went through doors and then got into the changing room of Liverpool, and people just got goosebumps from hearing that fans, despite the fact that they were losing 3-0, they were still singing the anthem. The anthem was never heard in the changing room. That was not heard. Because it's a very long tunnel, there is a lot of doors, and the noise doesn't get there. But anyway, as I said, believe whatever you want. And then, yeah, I found out that by mistake, Rafa had on the board, I think it was 9 players at the beginning, let's say that, and somebody pointed out, Rafa, you've got 9 players. Oh yes, sir, I forgot to put that one in, right? So I left that story to the end of the many conversations I had with Rafa for the book. The last question for the book was, by the way, Rafa, I've been told that you had at some point 9 players in the board. And I said, yeah, you know what? And then I started putting more players and I ended up with 12. And I was told again. So he came out with one of the stories that made the book, which showed a little bit the chaos of 7 minutes. That's all you have to actually change matters. As you said, with Finan being injured and having to be replaced with Traore in the shower, having to be kitted again, and Finan being held by the physio because he wanted to go back into the pitch. But Rafa didn't want that a player will get injured in the minute 50 and then be affected by it. Preferred to take matters in his own hand at that point. And then somebody said, didn't we score 3 goals in the second half against Olympiacos? Yes. And people started engaging in that kind of talk. Then coming out of the pitch, there was Gattuso coming on the pitch, heard, obviously at that point, on the pitch, everybody heard that You Never Walk Alone was sang. And he turned towards his fans and were like, come on, this cannot happen. This cannot happen. And I think it was Jamie Carragher that turned around to his teammates, seeing that, says, look, they're celebrating already. They think they won. To try to motivate or provoke his own teammates. But did Milan celebrate it at halftime in the changing rooms? Absolutely not. They are the most respectful professionals. That would have never happened. There was even talk that they started wearing the winning T-shirt or something. None of that happened. But yeah, once it happened, the 3 goals, which is, I calculated as long as it takes to boil an egg, 6 minutes. That's all it takes. 6 minutes. While you're boiling an egg, you go to the kitchen, boil an egg, come back. Liverpool has scored 3 goals, and that I spoke to a sports psychologist and the effect of the first goal, how it's difficult to recover from it, how Ancelotti, all you can see was him chewing gum. That's all he did. He didn't react at all. How Gattuso felt that when the penalty was given, it's like, it's a divine intervention. He thought, we're not going to win this now. It's just turning against us. God is giving them the chance to win this. This is what he thought on the pitch. And then, Xavi missing the penalty, he could have been more nervous. But at the same time, he felt, if I miss this penalty, it doesn't matter, because we are in such a good way that we're going to turn this around. To, Ochotrena giving Dudek 100 instructions about the penalties, but Dudek listening to none of it and doing it his own way. But at the same time, Dudek eventually was thankful that Ochotrena had prepared him in the way that he prepared him for the final and improved him as a goalkeeper. And 100 other stories that you can certainly get in the book.
I'm due to speak with Cara, and I've always wondered, would he have been putting himself forward, because obviously he'd scored that fantastic penalty in the League Cup final a few years before. I think he fancied himself, but I'm not sure that Rafa would have fancied Jamie.
The only thing I remember from the penalty shootout is that Luis Garcia was constantly asking to take one, and he was ignored. And maybe somebody said, you can take the 6th. So if there is a 6th one, you can take it. That just come to my mind. So because Luis Garcia was like, me, no, not you. Just like, giving him, turning around from him so he couldn't see that he was being ignored. But yeah, that's what I remember of it.
I'm not sure that Cara would have made it from the halfway line to the 18-yard box, the amount of cramp that he was suffering from. But where then, just finally where does Istanbul rank? Liverpool fans will always insist it is probably not just the greatest European Cup final, but the greatest football story Where does it rank for you from a somewhat neutral perspective?
Well, I'm not neutral, first of all. Secondly, why are we looking for objectivity in football? This is an emotional game. So to put it on GPT, he may give you an answer, or she may give you an answer. But I have to say to you that what I lived that night was incredible, difficult to describe. It was my first book. Happened to my mates in the city that had looked after me for a decade, and my brother, and my brother's girlfriend. People that I still got friends there. I still go and see them. Is my favorite city in the world. Um, and you want me to, as a neutral, to describe what happened that day? I mean, to me, it was the greatest thing. Um, I will compare it to other nights. Espanyol winning in Valencia, in Madrid, the cup final. Because United being in a cup, winning a cup on Wednesday in the Dudley Lethem Memorial Cup. It's like the League Cup. That was amazing. One of the big nights. That's what I can certainly say. I mean, I've been involved in football since '97, so there's been a lot of nights. But if you had to pick, it'd be one of those that you pick. One of the 5 top ones that I will pick, yeah, certainly.
So I'm guessing that if I was to ask you if you could go back and relive one football match that you've previously seen and watch it again from the stands.
Wow. I'm the chairman of a football club, and there is wins and defeats matter more than anything else in the world, right? So if we take Biggleswade United away, and I know I'm an Espanyol fan, and the 2 cup finals were brilliant at a time where we haven't won anything for 60 years, and those were fantastic nights, unexpectedly as well. In both cases, against Zaragoza that had beat Real Madrid and Barcelona, and against Atletico Madrid that had fantastic players, Hasselbank and Valerón and so on. Istanbul ranks above them. It's to do with the personal side of it, as I said to you, the fact that it was completely unexpected, and it changed my way of thinking about finals, where logic completely disappears. Okay, yeah, I get it. You have to do previews and but the Real Madrid plays, they're going to win generally, and AC Milan, Liverpool, out of 90 times they meet, 89 will be won by Milan. Those teams meeting again. So to actually the underdogs winning, to do it in Istanbul, what a place that is, and with fans that hadn't seen their team winning, many of them. That had a lot of ingredients for a unique experience.
I can't say it any better than that myself. So, Guillem, thank you again for your time today. It's been beautiful to reminisce about that night. I think we could all reminisce about it for a very long time. It's one of those
Yeah.
games that just stands out like a light bulb memory, and will live for us for the rest of the time. So, thankfully, from your book, we have got that to relive it again. So, for anybody out there that's watching or listening, Guillem's updated version of the book is available now, and it's got a new intro from Rafa Benitez himself. So yeah, we'll go get it, guys. Guillem, thank you again for your time.
My pleasure, Matt. Cheers.